This is about fun. It's about learning. It's about curiosity.
Yeah.
A lot of times we like to talk about, but one of the things I think, Richard, that stands out about you, you're very kind. You're very welcoming. You are not plain Jane, but you are always bringing things to the conversation that are new and unique. You don't, as some people in the industry will say, back to basics. You're anything but basic. And I think that's a great thing because you're memorable.
Well, I can't shut up, so yeah. I mean that certainly helps, right?
But I think also one thing is you're fun. And you just talked about your daughter planning to graduate soon.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's
thank
exciting.
you.
And you've been in the industry how long now?
30 years.
30 years. So I think one of the things for me is I think about my career. I've been in the industry now 15 years, and I'm thinking about my kids. I want to get them involved in the business. So maybe we'll start there. Is what advice do you have for me? Are you thinking about? Are you trying to get family and friends into the industry, or are you like stay away from this industry?
Listen, I've been very blessed and fortunate in my career, and I stumbled into property management. So I started I have a degree in marine science. Worked in that field for a brief amount of time and discovered there was no money in that.
Which school?
University of Miami, down in
Nice.
Florida. Came out to California in '92 and never left, but the environmental field was tough. I got back into hospitality with Hyatt Hotels and stumbled into property management after that. And I gotta tell you, I haven't done a resume since 1996. I've been lucky enough to be with Trammell Crow, that turned into Riverstone Residential Group, and then Greystar acquired us back in 2014. And I've just had a great run, and what I appreciate about property management is you are running a multi-million-dollar business. I mean, if you are a property manager, community manager, you are touching every component of what it is like to run a business. Whether it's staffing, whether it's resident relations, customer service, overseeing the financials of the community, every aspect of having a business you will touch in property management. And that is what is exciting for me. I can't believe my daughter is graduating in 2 weeks. She has been around property management her entire life.
Yeah.
It's kind of ingrained in her because I'm a bit of a workaholic. I like what I do. Clients and colleagues have become personal friends, and this is an industry where you can really combine relationships. Mm-hmm. And that is very appealing. And I think for her to go into this type of business, I think it would be very rewarding. Would love to help guide her in that, and I think there is a little bit of an interest. So whether it's in a marketing role or whether it's operations, I think she'll be looking at job postings for Greystar in the near future.
That's awesome. And so I think one of the other things I'd love to hear is obviously Greystar, you've been a lot of your career, you talked before that, Riverstone, the acquisition. Maybe tell me a little bit about, because sometimes acquisitions go well, sometimes they don't.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the acquisition of Greystar? If you rewind, were you working with Mike Clow and Terry Danner back then, or?
Yeah, I was. Mike was on the Greystar side, so I was on the Riverstone side.
Great.
And I've known Terry Danner for a long time. That was a huge surprise because Riverstone was probably the second largest management company at that time. Greystar, we were very competitive, but Greystar wasn't necessarily predominant in the West Coast, and I was always based on the West Coast. So when it was announced, it caught everyone by shock. And what I've learned through one, being acquired, and two, through acquisitions after that, is there's a lot of stress not only on the group that's being acquired, but I took for granted how much stress is on the teams that are doing the acquiring. Because generally you're going to acquire a company for something, whether it's access to clients, whether it's presence, whether it's people. Well, there's great people in the company that's being acquired. So you start thinking about job security and like, do I need to worry about my job? And one of the things that has been great is I found my voice quickly with Greystar. They acquired our company for a reason, and just put your nose down and don't worry about the noise, and just be the best that you can be and let your work product speak for itself. And generally things will play out, whether it's with that company or whether you look at new opportunities and it opens your eyes to other avenues to achieve success. So it can be stressful, but what I've learned out of that process and subsequent ones is really communication is key. And you talk about relationships, and I think communication and relationships go hand in hand. You have to be able to communicate effectively in order to establish a relationship. If you're not transparent on intentions, or you're not working with people that you think are being forthright, it makes it really challenging. So I've always tried in interactions, whether it's people that I know or people that I don't, I try to be as transparent as I can. I am what I am. I'm not smoke and mirrors. And I think people appreciate genuine character and just treat people with respect. Everyone's got a job to do. It's a huge industry, and we're all competitive, I think, by nature, but it's a good competitive spirit. But at the end of the day, that's a great person that you're competing against. And it's a big enough pool where everyone could be successful. I think people forget about that.
Obviously, if you've been in this industry for a while, you've worked with Greystar, your team, or so many people who've impacted my life, from Gardner Reese, Stephanie Furman, think of Lane Gomez, now a Catalyst, but and I learned some valuable lessons around reputation and how to treat others in the industry. So how do you train? Because obviously you've got a big team there, and so you probably are working with a lot of different teams, whether it's existing teams. How do you think about that leadership and driving culture? Because everyone talks culture, but how do you actually lead? I think one of the things you talked about was you can lead from the front and lead from the back. So I'd love to hear maybe your perspective.
There's qualities in a leader, and if you're considered a leader, it isn't just because you have a title. There's plenty of people that have titles that really don't have a good sense of what the heartbeat of the team is. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and I think there's a couple buckets of leadership. There's certainly those leaders that need to be outspoken and lead from the front, where they are the center of attention, and the teams are executing their plans. There's leaders that walk amongst the team, right? It's less about one individual's accomplishments versus spreading the wealth, and it's the goal and the common good that is recognized. And I think there's leaders that have no desire to be seen. They will push from the back. They will guide. They will mentor. I don't know. I'm actually all over the board, right? I think you adapt to the situation and the people that are around you. You figure out how to best showcase what their skill set is. For 15 years of growing the portfolio in California in business development, my number one job was to make our teams shine, highlight their characteristics, lend support where they need to be. I think when you're in a pitch and you're selling your services, a good business development person is kind of like sand under a foundation, and the sand shifts to where the foundation needs support, but you're always elevating. And I think at the end of the day, whether you lead from the front, in the middle of the pack, or pushing from behind, there's degrees of success, and each one is effective in its own right based upon the situation.
Greystar is always evolving. Greystar, I think, was roughly around, maybe you can give us some data there, but around...
We have eclipsed 1 million units.
Congratulations.
Globally.
Yeah. So, how many billions of dollars do you oversee, or is that a fact you share?
I don't even.
Okay.
It's always changing. I don't even know.
Sure.
It's funny because Jay Parsons had put out a LinkedIn post talking about the perception of what big is, and while Greystar is certainly large compared to the overall total housing stock of multifamily, less than 4%. So when you look at that scale, we don't feel so big, but we certainly feel big within the industry, and we want to be a leader and impactful, and certainly want a work environment that people want to be part of. We want to provide services that clients want to partner with us versus a management company being a commodity. I think that's important and integral to our success, to look across the table and know that you're going to have a candid conversation on whether it's good news or whether it's bad news, but there's going to be a plan on how to address the situation at hand.
I think one of the things you hit on was decision making and instant gratification versus
Yes.
long-term planning. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. When you're trying to juggle, and in our business, you're juggling so many things.
Right.
There's 50 directions you can go. How do you stay focused? And then how do you make great decisions? And how do you make sure your teams are planning without perfection?
Yeah, it's hard because I think we're in an instant gratification period of business, right? It used to be, we used to have a pager and we used to have the fax paper that would roll, right? And you have to change it when you get the little pink edge. You had time to think, but as people became more proficient, we started relying on the internet, right? Emails got quicker, everything started to be faster. It's instant gratification. You have news, everything is on our phone. We live on our phone now, right?
Mm-hmm.
All this information that we have to process and think about in deadlines that have gotten compressed, you still have to figure out how to carve out time to actually think about all of the information that you're taking in and the information that you have to spit out. And I think that's a critical issue in our industry today, is there's not enough time to actually think about a strategic plan and then give that plan time to take effect. I think about a lease up that was struggling in LA, and the team just couldn't get across what they needed to do with ownership. And that's sometimes when you have to lean on a leader to have a tough discussion to go, maybe you need to think about this, and these are the things that the team were talking about. And they've thought over a period of time on what you need to do. Sometimes you have to listen to them doing it, but I do think everything is so fast today. We need to let on-site teams and regional managers digest information to allow them to give a good plan going forward on how to best operate the assets.
And it reminds me of, like you talked about, value of relationships, but I'm even thinking of that transparency of, there's a book called Radical Candor. Maybe you've read that, you got to be clear about where you're missing the mark and where you need to spend your time with your teams, et cetera. Because if you're not digging into the difficult conversations, then you're not actually going to solve the problems.
That's right.
So no, I appreciate you being with us. What's one thing that maybe you're excited about this year that you want to leave us with, or maybe a insight into a secret or something you're going to be sharing maybe this year that we should be following you for?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know if there's any secrets to be had. I think we're in turbulent times. Certainly transactional volume has been down. I'm worried about if interest rates drop, or when developers and property owners are comfortable to bring their deals to market and the transaction volume is going to go back to what it was. Because right now there's operational change, which stresses organizations, management changes, job volatility. When those floodgates open, not only are you going to have operational transitions, but then you're going to have chasing new business. And that churn is what is very disruptive to organizations. Thankfully, Greystar has a pretty deep bench and good support to kind of weather those storms. But I do think there's a tidal wave coming, and we just need to be prepared for it. But I don't have a secret sauce on how we're going to approach it or handle it, but I know it's coming.
When is your book coming that you're going to write? Because you have so many experiences, stories, et cetera, travels.
Well, I think last time we met, you had asked me a question on legacy, and I'm like, yo dog, I got another 20 years. I like what I'm doing. I could do this for a while longer, and I think I like what I'm doing because I care about the people. I've established great relationships on both sides of the fence, on the ownership side as well as the management side. And attending events like this and interacting with people such as yourself, it just fills my bucket, right? There's no better industry to foster great relationships than multifamily. And I think I'm gonna ride that wave as long as I can.
Yeah, well, thanks for meeting up with us, Richard, in Chicago.
Thank you.
It's been
Appreciate
great.
it.